As a result, the town clerk failed to report collections to the supervisor as required by law and did not report money collected at her office in a timely manner. The board's lack of oversight exposed town assets to risk of loss and or abuse and could result in errors and or irregularities occurring and remaining undetected and uncorrected in a timely manner. The board also has not adopted a comprehensive procurement policy that encourages solicitation of alternative proposals or quotations for professional services. As a result, town officials and employees did not solicit competitive proposals or quotations for 8 of 11 professional services we tested, totaling $1.8 million. Let me read that again. As a result, town officials and employees did not solicit competitive proposals or quotations for 8 of 11 professional services we tested, totaling $1.8 million. Therefore, town officials cannot be assured that these services were procured in the most efficient and economical way possible. In addition, the board did not have written agreements with 9 of the 11 professional services providers tested, who were paid about $1.8 million during the audit period. Without detailed written agreements, neither party has a clear means of determining the basis for entitlement to compensation. Folks, this is the old guard at its worst. This is the way business has been conducted for 20 years or more in this town, and it's time for change because we cannot afford these luxury practices and these luxury expenditures any longer.
This is something that you and I have looked at since day one when we had taken office, and when we talk about the library and the museum and things like that, yes, there will be cuts, and we have proposed those last year, and they were kicked back to us. We are now at a critical stage, and I had mentioned it last year, that we should have to watch our spending. Not spend so much money on trucks. Rather than buying a new truck for $150,000, why don't we spend $30,000 or $40,000 to fix that truck and get a couple more years out of it? These are the things we have been looking at and fighting for. And when you mention professional services, Mr. Gross, this audit report mentions 9 of 11 professional services we have not gotten RFPs. And this is during our administration that we've tried to get done. But this has been going on for years, something that we've been trying to curtail. And these are alarming figures. And it's simply basic accounting principles, basic saving matters, as if you were running your home. Do you spend unreasonably for your children? Sometimes you do, if you can afford it. We have to look at it the same way here in the town, and that's how I have been trying to project that to other councilmen. You know, we look at our garbage contract, and we go over and over on this week after week how we spent in excess of $857,000 to simply put the contents of garbage into the back of a truck, where then we are fought down and beat down. But that is now the practice. And I look at my 2 council persons here who smile and think that, no, maybe somewhere along the line you should have condemned that action instead of embracing it. Because if you embrace it, then moving forward, you and I will have more of a difficult time trying to save the community's money. You know, we then talk about the air conditioning unit put into this town hall. 1 bid, they approved it, it was let to go, $100,000 to put in an air conditioning, central air conditioning unit for this building. And to my embarrassment, I find out it only covers half of the building. That's $100,000 to cover half of a building. This is how we spend the money around here.
And we voted against it.
We voted against it. And we tried and we insisted upon it, not to do it over and over and over again. But I have to remind everybody, you and I are just 2 votes. And lots of people come up to me, whether it's the A&P or the Home Depot, and they say to me, Mr. Yee, you need to do something. And I say, I'm doing my best. And in this country, you go on the majority. And if it's a 5-member board, you base it upon 3 votes. And I need 1 more vote to try to at least save a couple dollars in this community. And if you're embracing, you know, $857,000, almost $1 million in a contract to a higher bidder, then something's wrong here. Something needs to be done. And now we have to look at a report from the New York State Comptroller's Office to finally tell us that something is wrong.
Not to tell us, Councilman, but to tell the other 3.
Tell the other team.
Can we end the conversation here?
No, I haven't finished yet. Because back when I knew that the auditors were here, and they were auditing the town attorney, And then I prepared, and I mentioned it to you last week, an Excel spreadsheet of the audit period, which was 14 months, and how we should look at that. Your silence has been deafening. I have not heard one word to how to curtail any of, at least, the town attorney's spendings. And the state auditor has even said it's been double-dipped. And yet, since July, August, September, going into October, not one word from other board members. And you and I have discussed this over and over again. There's nothing else we can do with our 2 votes other than to publicly bring it out to my community what is happening. That's the best I can do, is to let you know what's going on in your community, how the money is being spent. I cannot change it with just 2 votes. You need to reach out to your other council persons and reach out and say to them what's going on. Now we're in a deficit. And you even said, Mr. Gross, it's alarming. Yes, it is alarming. We all need to look at this. And why has it come to a point that the state auditor has to tell us that? You didn't listen to the supervisor, you didn't listen to me. When I wanted to save $9.32 on a battery, when I got a voucher and said, what is this for? A battery for $9.32, you laughed at me. You thought it was silly that I was looking at that, but it wasn't silly. It is now added up to millions of dollars that now we hopefully don't have to have a tax rate, a tax increase for this community. You may now have the floor.
Okay, you know,
Wait, no, pardon me. Councilman Gross has the floor. Thank you.
Oh, well, you're playing fast and loose with the facts, as you guys do all the time. First of all,
This is fast and loose.
Supervisor writes, you owe the town $200 you said 6 months ago you'd pay. That's a little more than a $9 battery. So let's put your money where your mouth is. You owed it. You tried to bum flowers you bought for a retiree from your own personal, from you, make the taxpayers pay for that. I didn't see the voucher this time, so maybe you withdraw it.
Not to interrupt you, but you overlooked, pardon me, you overlooked the $10 mileage analysis, reimbursement.
quite
So
frankly,
I wanted to add that.
let's
Councilman Gross.
not
Please,
interrupt each
Councilwoman.
other. Let's not interrupt
I was
each
just
other.
Let me
making a
finish
complete
here.
record. Go ahead,
And
Councilman.
by the way, we're the old guard, okay? We're the old guard. Let's get that straight right now.
No, we're not.
That audit you talked about criticizes all of us, in particular you, because you are the budget officer, and we were not kept abreast of what was going on until very recently. I'm talking about facts, not just throwing out wild accusations. I'm talking about real facts. You need to consult with us. You're the full-time guy, and you did not do that. Let's talk about the attorney. I don't know all the ins and outs, but Carmel has one attorney at least, and several paralegals. So the money is divided up among a number of people. Guys, the attorney over there has his own telephone and so forth. You add up their monies, it's much more than we pay our town attorney, because we have one person who doesn't even have an office here, okay? As far as talking about the garbage contract you keep bringing up, ladies and gentlemen, these 2 guys wanted to stay with AWS, which if we had stayed with them would be something like $900,000 it would have cost you over a 5-year period keeping that old contract. We have a contract now which communities in Putnam County are asking us about. We have the best rates by far, something like $21.75 a month. And this company that we have, SaniPro, has a permit. They had favorable recommendations. The company they keep talking about had no permit, no recommendations. They didn't even have the trucks to complete the contract. I can't believe you guys keep bringing that up. I mean, their maintenance program was written in crayon, this company that they supported. Okay? So we have a good contract, which other towns in Putnam County want. We've got a good situation. We have a responsibility to provide the safety in our services, and the garbage company we have now does that. We're going to save the town a lot of money. You have the best garbage rates in Putnam County by far. It's not even close by a reputable operation. Let's talk about the air conditioning here. You also conveniently forget that we had a very large fund balance back in the 2007, 2006, as you pointed out. And that money was from developers' fees, good, sensible investments and interest and so forth, which we were able to buy this building at no bond at all. No further cost to the taxpayers. We purchased this building. And there was a $300,000 fund left over from that purchase for a punch list, i.e. heating, i.e. air conditioning. The reason why we did that, ladies and gentlemen, we went with that one vendor because they were the only vendor that would sign to try to fix this place up, because they knew the reputation of the supervisor who doesn't like to pay people. We had Broadview Telephone, we had the Putnam Times come in begging for their checks. Even former Councilman Johnson, you held his check for months for $15 for some UPS thing he did for the town. That's your way of doing business. So the situation related to the air conditioning, it had to be done. We have one more issue on that. OSHA was going to close this place down. A leader has a responsibility to take care of its troops, take care of your personnel. We can't have OSHA closing this place down. As a result, this summer and last summer, we had to close this building at one time or another because it was too damn hot in here, because the air conditioning wasn't working. So we had to get it done. The supervisor should have acted in 2008 and done it, but he only works a couple of days a week, so you can't really expect that, okay?
Roger.
Lastly, you want to talk about trucks, Dwight. I don't understand where you're coming from, being a police officer and handling automobiles and motorcycles. Our highway department has purchased surplus vehicles for $800, $900, fixed them up, and they're like $30,000 trucks on the highway. They're painted green and they run very well. One truck he talks about, you know how it operates, same with school buses. You have to rotate your stock every so many years to keep a fleet that meets state standards, meets the DOT standards, and operates. That's why we purchased this last major truck, which was a large expense, but we needed to have it. You have to service the public. Consistent, reliable service in garbage, consistent, reliable service that relates to the highway department. That's what we need to provide to the community, and there are some costs involved. I think we've done a pretty damn good job in spite of your accusations and wild use of numbers. You guys are out of control. Fortunately, we have 3 votes to keep you in line.
Thank you, Mr. Gross.
Yeah, Roger, just to note, this report was not the supervisor's report. The supervisor's budget's been defeated in the last 2 years. Again, a property tax cut in the first year and a property tax freeze proposed in the second year. This report of examination for the period January 1, 2009 to March 31, 2010 is addressed to the Town of Southeast internal controls over selected financial activities by the New York State Office of the Comptroller. And with respect to the garbage contract, the proposal was to do business with the lowest responsible bidder as required by general obligations law. And the fact that the town board, 3-2, again, with Dwight and me in the minority, chose to do business with alleged racketeers after a 12-year history of dealing with actual racketeers, some of whom are in jail tonight, speaks for itself. Councilwoman Hudak?
Can I, first of all, if I may just borrow what you just showed, may I borrow that report that you just held up?
Go ahead and make your point, Councilwoman.
No, I have to make the point with the report, if you please.
I'm sure you brought yours tonight.
No,
right?
no, actually.
You don't have have you read it, Liz?
Oh.
You should read it.
Oh, absolutely. And not only have I read it, what was interesting is I read the proviso that was sent to us by the Comptroller's Office that said that this must be maintained confidential. Because what Supervisor Wrights doesn't want you to see is that there's a big draft across the front of that report. It's a draft report. We are permitted, and as a matter of fact, there's a meeting, and it's not a full town board meeting. It's just 2 people who are going to meet with the Comptroller's Office to get our responses to that draft report so that it can be corrected, so that there can be more colloquy regarding it. Because quite frankly, I think the most colloquy that there was had on it was from the supervisor. So the supervisor spoke to the Comptroller's Office, and as a result, a draft DRAFT report, that's on the front there, report was prepared. We were told to leave it confidential, and I don't know whether or not the supervisor read that, because that's what I read. It said confidential, and simply because we don't want to have people on the town board waiving these reports and reading from the reports when the town board hasn't had an opportunity to discuss with the Comptroller what could possibly be inaccuracies, which might have been picked up from their reading of certain documents, or maybe picked up from the supervisor. I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating. When I read the report, when I saw, inaccuracies and also statements, which quite frankly would have led me to believe, if I'm a town person reading it, that it's really the supervisor's office which is lacking in direction and which is lacking in leadership. Well, I hope that tomorrow when Councilmember Cullen and the supervisor meet with this individual, that they're going to raise some of those issues. Perhaps Supervisor Wrights can address those issues. But what I want to emphasize to you in the first instance is this is a draft. So you just heard a draft that had no input from other members of the board.